Welcome. Good evening. I call to order the work study / special meeting of the Cave Creek Unified School District number 93 Governing Board. It's Monday, February 28th, 2022, and it's 6 o'clock. Item 1.2, roll call. All 5 board members are present, and there is a quorum. Present from the cabinet are Dr. Monroe, Dr. Jensen, Ms. Rodriguez, and Mrs. Scott. Item 1.3, formal adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt the agenda as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. The agenda is adopted as presented. Item 1.4, call to fill out forms for call to the public. We do have a form, so an admonition will be read in a couple minutes. Item 1.5, Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me in the pledge. Number 2, presentations of awards for schools and departments. There are none. Number 3, public comments. Item 3.1, call to the public. The admonition goes as follows. According to ARS 38-431.01H, governing board members may not discuss or take legal action on matters raised during an open call to the public. The only allowable responses a governing board member may make are, number 1, board member may respond if there is a direct criticism of the board member. Number 2, board member may direct staff to look into a matter. Or number 3, board member can ask to have this item placed on a future agenda. Speakers need to be mindful of what they say when presenting to the board. Inappropriate comments could be considered slanderous. And we have one speaker, Ms. Kelly Love. Is Ms. Love in here?
Thank you all for advocating for our students and our schools. I understand that you have chosen to volunteer your time so that you can serve our schools and community. I appreciate how seriously you take your civic duty. I also appreciate your willingness to stretch our tax dollars to support our teachers and staff. We know that you could choose to invest this money other ways, and we appreciate you investing in us. I also want to be sure you are aware of the way you can support our staff and teachers that doesn't cost a dime. Extend trust. We are not teaching critical race theory. If we have an individual staff member who teaches inappropriate content to our students, it is addressed immediately and stops. I am not sure why you are questioning Second Step, a curriculum that has been board approved. We are not indoctrinating children, quite the contrary. Our schools teach much less about what a person should believe or think than they did many years ago. We focus on teaching our students how they can think critically and independently so that they can make informed decisions. We are teaching them to respect each other. That is Second Step. So while we are so proud of how far we have come in being recognized as the professionals we are, we simply ask that you trust us in our classrooms so that we can be professionals. Please trust us and the resources we use to teach our students how to be respectful. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 4, presentations, information, and reports. 4.1, IBN update presented by Ms. Marcy Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. So this evening we are going to share with you recommendations from our IBN team. All of the committee members are here. And I'd like to just take a moment to talk about how this process is in line with our strategic plan. So under the employee excellence portion of our priorities, this process helps us to build culture and promote and supports innovative learning in our community, and it strengthens the talents of our employees. So as we walk through the recommendations this evening, I would ask we have a break at certain points for questions. If you wouldn't mind holding your questions to that point, that way we can allow the team to walk us through the process that was used. So I want to first start by acknowledging this wonderful IBN team. Would all of those in the room that were on the IBN team please stand? So I want to give a round of applause. They devoted their time and worked together as a team. This is quite an involved process, as you'll see as we go through the presentation. And several of the members will be presenting to you this evening. So the first member that's going to present, I'm going to turn it over to Jill.
Good evening, President Hatcher, Vice President Fortney, and members of the board. I am Jill Mclin, the co-president of CCEA. And one of the things that we did, we met 5 different times as an IBN team. Each meeting had a slightly different agenda. You can see up there, I'll give you a couple seconds. We started with actually how IBN works, the process, and we actually trained that first meeting. And then we continued through. The IBN process really is about making decisions that represent the good of the whole. We tried to find solutions for problems that were discussed. In addition, we tried to be as transparent as possible with certified, classified, and admin. We did send communiques out after each meeting. And overall, the process was respectful, and we really wanted to make sure that the voices of all were heard. So throughout the IBN process, we start with the story, and the story tells, why we are here. From the story, we find interests, or we present our interests to the admin group and the classified group. And then each side, classified, admin, or certified, come up with different options. We look at those options to make sure that they fit the standards, and then to see if the district can make that commitment, if they can actually implement it, and then we evaluate to see if those negotiations are possible. And then the next person I would like to call up is the Vice President of CCA, Ms. Trish Duran.
Thank you, Jill. Board members, it's great to see you tonight. This is my first year being a member of the interest-based negotiating team, and part of our initial meeting was to set a purpose for ourselves. I don't know if you're aware of it, I wasn't aware of it, but we've been doing this process for over 15 years. So this is not something new for the district. It was new for some of us, but the process itself was positive and respectful, and I got to know some great people, and we came up with a purpose that does serve all of our district groups. One of the other things that we also talked about was establishing standards. As you know, each group comes with a variety of solutions for their best interest. But we agreed on these standards that we would evaluate each set of solutions so that they would benefit the entire district. And we took a lot of time making sure that we discussed it as a whole, broke into groups, and came back and found solutions that worked for all of us. The next thing that we came up with after we came up with our standards and our purpose was our priorities. We used an anonymous online survey answered by most of our certified staff, and we came up with 3 priorities from that survey. The first was salary, followed by classroom site fund monies, and working conditions for all of our certified staff. And to talk about the classified staff, I'd like to bring up Kathleen. Thank you.
President Hatcher, Vice President Fortney, and governing board members. I am Kathleen Lawson. I'm a paraprofessional at Cactus Shadows High School. And it was an honor for me to serve on this committee because I've always been interested in the work of the committee. And what we did was right away we sent out, or not me personally, but a survey for all the classified was sent out anonymously. And if you notice under classified, in the order of importance, compensation, health insurance, reworking the longevity stipend, and work calendars were what we decided was most important for us. And now I turn it over to Marcy.
Thank you, Kathleen. So what I'd also like to share with you, so you saw the wonderful process and the team building that happened. That could not have happened without a strong facilitator. So the district brought in a facilitator. Her name was Sheila Sorensen, and she did a fabulous job helping us build the purpose, the standards. Unfortunately, she's not able to be here with us this evening, but I do want to acknowledge the work that she did to build this team and bring us together. So we're going to talk about the recommendations that came as a result of all of the survey and the conversations that the team had. But first thing we needed to do is we needed to talk about what the available funds were going to be. So we have all these wonderful ideas and everybody coming to the table saying, we want a 10% increase for everybody across the board. And although that's a very wonderful gesture and recommendation, is that feasible? So we took a look at the available funds to see what we could do with what we had available for us. So what I look at is I took this year's M&O budget. We know the M&O budget is where the majority of the salaries and benefits are paid from. And I projected what that 2023 is going to look like. Those assumptions that I made were no growth in student enrollment. I've been watching that over the year. Although we had a little bit of a dip, it's been pretty steady for the last several months. So I am pretty hopeful that next year coming in, we will remain the same. No growth. I'm hoping a little bit of an increase. We've been doing some recruiting and things that the schools have been doing to try to bring in additional students, so hopefully we'll see some growth. But having said that, we know that there's an inflationary rate that we're going to receive from the state. It's either 2%, the inflation rate, or 2%, whichever is lower, because we know if we were to get the actual inflation rate, we'd give it about 5% this year. So we can say we're going to get a 2% increase. That's going to give us $261,000 for an additional funds for next year. And then I took a look at vacancy savings. So we did some pretty significant cuts last year. So that was not factored into these vacancy savings. What was factored into this were current positions that we had open that we were not able to fill for whatever reason this year. So taking a look at that money that we saved, $260,000 was added onto that, and we have available funds of $521,000. So that's what the team had to work with. So I'm going to turn it over to our team members and now allow them to talk about what those additional funds they're making a recommendation for. And I just will remind you, these are recommendations they're bringing forth to you this evening. We will not be taking any action on these. We'll be bringing them back to the board at the next meeting.
So for years in our district, we honored teachers that had doctorate degrees and that stayed in CCUSD to teach our kids. Last year, through the IBN process, that doctorate stipend for those teachers were taken away. And the IBN team feels strongly that that should be given back to those teachers that stay in the classroom and directly impact those students. And so that projection is about $4,500. Each of them would get a $1,500 stipend. The other thing that was a priority for certified teachers was the classroom site fund allocations. So while the monies are not changing, the way that we pay teachers will change. And so currently that $4,400 is added throughout the school year to all teachers' paychecks. And then in June, teachers wait for that pay for performance check, which is about $3,000. One of the priorities for teachers was, how can I get paid more And while you're not necessarily getting paid more, your paycheck every 2 weeks will be a little bit higher because we're going to allocate $6,900 to be paid over the course of the school year. And then at that June check, teachers would then get their $500 pay for performance. So it's the same amount, but teachers would be getting their money faster and they would have a little bit more each paycheck. And now I'd like to introduce Mr. Aaron Bagwell.
Thank you, Jill. President Hatcher, Vice President Fortney, members of the board. My name is Aaron Bagwell. I'm the principal at Desert Sun Academy, and this was my second go-around with the IBM process in my tenure here at in Cave Creek, and it was a great experience. Learned a lot and enjoyed the time spent going over some of these things. What I'm here to go over with you is what used to be called the longevity stipend. This was something that was paid out for employees who showed loyalty to the district, that we would thank them for 5 years, and it was done through increments. And so it was important for the team to really kind of take a look at this under our one team mantra, as far as being all under, being treated together. We're all here under one team, and I want to take a look at this statement here and focus your attention on the spot where it says all employees. As you can see from the next slide, the way it was done, we had two different setups, one for classified and one for certified. And so what the team decided to do was basically blend these two together. And so when you look at the one there in the middle that we agreed on, you can see that we're using the stipend amounts from the certified stipend, and we combined it with the current years of service for the classified staff, so that now no matter what employee group you belong to, you are still rewarded for your years of service, and there isn't any more separation between certified and classified. So that was important for us to go over. And then the second one that I have is the 2% salary increase, again under the same mantra of one team. The team decided that everyone would get, in all employee groups, everybody would get a 2% salary increase for the upcoming school year. And so thank you for your time, and I'll introduce Ms. Caroline Lynch.
President Hatcher, Vice President Fortney, members of the board, thank you so much. This next couple of slides are big wins for the district, and as an IBN team, we are very excited to present to you these options. Our current benefit, medical benefit insurance provider is Blue Cross Blue Shield of Arizona. Currently, this is not a recruitment or a retention tool based on our premiums and the cost passed on to the employees. When we went back to Blue Cross Blue Shield to find out our premiums for the 22-23 school year, based on our member experience, it would be an increase of 19%. That's an additional $490,000 to the district, and we did not even calculate the cost that would be passed on to our employees. So the IBN team knew that this was not going to be a feasible option. We did reach out to different providers, and the IBN team has chosen to recommend switching from Blue Cross Blue Shield to ASBATE. I do have Sean Shepard here who's going to talk to you about ASBATE in a second. But I want to offer and suggest 3 plans that the IBN team took a lot of time drilling down and working on to offer up to employees. We are recommending a small increase of district contribution to the employee premium benefits, a contribution to a health savings account, and currently we have a 20, 24, and 26 deduction schedule, and we are recommending that go to 121 deduction schedule. So I'm going to introduce Sean right now, Shepard from ASBA, and he's going to talk to you about ASBATE.
Thanks, Caroline. As she said, my name is Sean Shepard. I'm here from the ASBATE Insurance Trust, and we mostly just wanted to be here to make sure we could answer any of your questions about what this change would look like for the district and your employees. So if you'll indulge me, a very quick introduction to ASBATE. If you're not familiar, we are a insurance trust, a nonprofit insurance trust made up of school districts in the state of Arizona. So we only operate in Arizona. We've been here for a little over 40 years. We just celebrated our 40th year anniversary. So certainly prior to my joining, but it's been a great experience working with ASBATE. I always got to make that joke to call out the millennial. So we are just under 120 school districts in the state of Arizona participating. You can see we certainly manage a large number of different interests, as I'm sure as you're used to. So we have districts in anything from right here in Phoenix, all throughout in the state of Arizona and the rural communities. So we certainly understand and respect the needs of different districts and are excited about the potential to work with your district. So we have about 20,000 covered lives. We work with, again, a variety of districts throughout the state, so you can see some of the districts we work with that are kind of similar in size and scope to what you do today. So a little bit about how the plans work. So we offer essentially 9 shelf plans. So different from where you were with Blue Cross Blue Shield, where your plan design was probably a legacy of what you had for many years past. We have 9 shelf plans that we offer to the districts that join the pool. So they have different styles, and that's based on the names of the plan design. So your HR team, Caroline, worked with us to help identify the best plans that be the best match for your employees. Kind of how they work, they all have the core structure of how a major medical plan works. Obviously, free preventive care. Typically, they have a deductible of some sort, an out-of-pocket maximum, which is the maximum any of your employees would ever have to pay for a year. They just have sort of a different structure, whether it's a copay-based plan or a high-deductible plan with an HSA, allowing your employees an opportunity to potentially save on their taxes and long-term invest in their family's health care. Yeah, I actually think the best place to talk about that might be, if I can go for 2 slides, to show you just a little bit about how the plan designs look. So ASBATE has partnered with Aetna, or it's now a joint venture called Banner Aetna in Arizona. So it uses the Aetna network as opposed to the Blue Cross Blue Shield network. What I'll tell you from a network, we evaluated network disruption, which is in our industry a disruption report is looking at the facilities and the physicians, the providers that your employees utilize today, and making sure those would be generally in network with Aetna. And luckily in Arizona, we don't have significant network disruption issues. Generally, all the providers, all the hospitals that are in network with Blue Cross Blue Shield are going to be in network with Aetna. So generally, everybody's contracted similarly. There's a significant difference in how the network works with your Blue Cross Blue Shield plans today, or at least one of your plans, and how it would work with Banner Aetna and ASBATE. And it's actually a big win. As Caroline alluded to. So currently today, your base plan is what we call a narrow network. I believe it's called the Blue Cross Blue Shield Alliance Network. And it's based on Banner and Honor Health facilities and their aligned physician providers. So what we've done, and the only place you can actually get this is with ASBATE, it's called a 3-tier plan, but effectively you can see the 2 plans on the left, the 2 lines, that's all in one plan. So that's the high deductible plan, for just an example. And so the plans we've selected, if you go to any major broad Aetna network provider, that's going to be, we've essentially tried to match as closely as possible the plan designs that you've got today. But if you do utilize what would have been historically your narrow network, you get a lower copay, a lower coinsurance, a lower deductible. So effectively, if your employees make the choice to go to a Banner or Honor Health aligned facility or their physicians, it's lower out-of-pocket costs for the employees and their families. So essentially, it's just a win. You're not penalized if you just want to go to the broad network, but a big advantage if you do want to go to these aligned providers. And it actually saves the trust money, and that's one of the ways we're able to save you money is we have an ACO type arrangement with Honor Health and Banner, and they're able to more effectively utilize healthcare, control costs, and that's how we lower costs. So it's a communication effort that I think we need to do as we onboard your employees, but the more we can encourage them to go to that first tier, to the Banner aligned or Honor Health aligned providers, that's a win for the employees and the district and will save us all money. If they do go to the broad Aetna network, they've always got that choice. In the past, you had a narrow network where they had to go to those providers, so they didn't have network coverage, and now you've got the broad Aetna network, so you don't have to worry about making sure if somebody's going to fall outside of that network, but you've always got potential to save money. Any questions about how that works? Perfect. Did that help?
That was great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. So for the past 21-22 school year, the district contributes $539 a month towards employee premiums. The IBN team is recommending that we do increase this contribution to $559 for a total increase of monthly district contribution to $101,000. So I want to go over, the IBN team has recommended that we bring to the board 3 plans. And if you remember, the classified employees, their second priority was health benefits. The classified employees wanted, and the certified employees, but just not on their top 3 priorities, wanted a free health plan. We are recommending 2 free health plans for employees. The first one is the high deductible health plan. And so on the left, we have the Blue Cross Blue Shield Narrow Alliance Network, or the EPO 2500, that employees can currently get for free. And on the right-hand side would be the high deductible ASBATE plan. If an employee elected the high deductible health plan, the district will also contribute $240 towards their health savings account. As you can see, each then buy-up for dependents, family, spouses is at a less cost to the employees, which we believe is a win. This is the slide that Sean was at, but as you can see on the right-hand side, we've got the Blue Cross Blue Shield Narrow Network, which has an individual calendar year deductible of $2,000. And on the far left, you can see if an employee elects this high deductible plan and goes to the Banner Honor Health Network, they will have only a $1,500 deductible. Also, if you can see the co-insurances after the deductibles have been met, is at 20%, whereas in Blue Cross Blue Shield it was at 30%, so that's a win for employees also. And then we're always looking bottom line of what would be the calendar year out-of-pocket max in case I blow out my ACL, I fall, trip and shatter my ankle. What would be the maximum amount I would have to, and my family would have to endure? So this is the high deductible plan, the first free plan for employees. Then we also have the ASBATE Value Bronze, which would be a free plan for employees. And as you can see, we're comparing that to the Blue Cross Blue Shield Narrow Network. And again, less cost to the employees for their premiums, especially when we're looking at the employees plus family. And this is going to be a huge recruitment tool and retention tool for us moving forward. The Value Bronze, here's the comparison, the Blue Cross Blue Shield being on the right-hand side, and as you can see, again, the deductible decreases, the co-insurance remains the same, and the out-of-pocket maximum decreases as well. Also, you can see if you go to a specialist, your copay decreases, and then the primary care is very similar. The last one we did want to offer was a buy-up plan. There are employees that are used to a buy-up plan. Their medical providers are very important to them. Currently, our buy-up plan for 21 deductions for employee only costs $147.68. For next year, the buy-up plan would be $108. And as you can see, then for families, a significant decrease in premiums. Here's the comparison. Again, we are looking at a much lower deductibles and then very comparable, if not equivalent or lower out-of-pocket maximums. You can see for the Banner Health Network, the primary care copays are less and the specialty pays are less as well. So huge wins for us. Vision, we did have the option of going to the ASBATE for vision. And the IBN team just believed that there are going to be enough changes for employee benefits. Employees need to be consumers of their benefits, and so we wanted to start slow. VSP also came with new premiums, did not change their costs, so no cost change to the employees. So this is for the vision. And then the exact same thing for Delta Dental and EDS for next year. No increase to premiums from school year 22 to school year 23.
Thank you, team. Great job sharing the information. So when we put all of the recommendations together that the team is bringing forward, here is the final numbers, looking at the bottom line of being 507,000. And please know these are projections. So, but these are our best guesses that we have given the information we have today. So based on the information that I shared earlier with what we have available, what the team is recommending, we would entertain any questions from the governing board of all this information we've shared with you thus far.
All right, I'm making notes. I'm sure others have questions. Y'all?
I'll do one quick. If we switch over to the ASBATE plan, is that something then we have to re-up every year when we go through our IBN negotiations?
Well, we revisit our health care plans every year as far as staying competitive. We want to always make sure that this is of value to our employees, because we know people work for their salaries, but benefits are also an important part of the compensation, which was why it was really important for us this year to take a look at what our options were. So ASBATE being a trust, it doesn't require us to go out for an RFP. So this is something that, but we will get quotes from them every year. Their experience of increases historically has been very positive for districts. I've spoken to several of the districts that participate in this plan, kind of doing a reference check, if you will, to ask them about their experience, what their increases have been, how their customer service is, and everything was very positive.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Rodriguez, on the total cost of salary and benefit recommendation slide, yep. The total expenditure there, so those expenditures are being made up from what we're going to be receiving from the state, approximately $261,000. I'm just asking. I just want to make sure I know where this money's coming from. And the savings in vacancies, is that how we're?
Yes, Madam President, thank you for the question. Yes, that is correct.
Okay, thank you. The other thing I really like, that it sounds like the team was unified in their thinking and trying to think about everyone and align everyone, which I really like. I think that's great that some of the focus has also been on the classified too, not just the certified, but everyone. Yeah, let me just stop there for a second. Anyone else?
Yeah, it was, yes, thank you for that observation. And it was, all of the voices were heard. And that was very important in the process. And everyone was respectful. Of course, everyone comes with a different story and a different experience, but to listen to each other was very powerful.
Yeah.
I didn't have a question, but I did want to mention I was really pleased to see that the doctorate stipend was made a priority. I was really happy to see that's back for those teachers that have gone through those rigorous things and lost that this year. So thank you, team, for that.
If I'm understanding this ASBATE, there's 3 different plans available?
Yes, Member Busby, thank you for that question. There are actually 9 plans available through ASBATE, but we're recommending 3 different options for our employees.
What's the employee cost for each one of the plans? I mean, the hard cost, not Because what I see here is 0 employee costs. What's the actual cost per employee for any one of those plans?
So let's go back up and look. So I'm understanding what you're asking me is what is the district contributing, correct? So this is what the district would be contributing on a monthly basis.
Each one of the plans costs $559.
Each one of those, well, the first 2 that we're offering for free,
I want to know what ASBATE's premium is for each one of those plans.
Yep, sorry, hey, Sean Shepard again. Thank you for the question, Representative Busby. So what we've done, or I think actually what the HR team has done is, so the $559 covers the employee-only portion of the bronze plan, the value bronze plan. And there's, to offer the HSA plan and the high deductible plan, what they did is put the difference. The high deductible plan is actually less expensive from a premium perspective than the bronze plan, but to offer both for free, what they did was add the difference between the cost of the more expensive value bronze plan to the HSA as an HSA contribution. So while the HSA plan is actually less expensive than the bronze employee only cost is $559. The HSA plan is, I think it's about $125.
559 minus the 240.
Yeah. And then there's the HSA contribution makes up the difference of that. Does that make sense?
I know what you're saying. I asked for actual numbers.
Yeah, on the presentation, we did include the premium dollars for each plan, but there's 0 contribution on the employee side, so that is the premium dollar.
I understand that. I'm
Sorry.
concerned about what the district's financial responsibility is. That's why I'm asking.
The 559?
My question hasn't been answered. There's 3 plans. There's a hard cost to the employee portion. There's an employee premium for each one of those plans, and I'm asking simply for any one of those plans, the silver or the other, I've got the bronze here, is $559.
No, that's the district's contribution. The employee is 0 for 2 of them, and there's one that they do pay for.
There's an employee premium that the district is charged. I want to know what that premium is. on
So
any one
for
of
the
other plans.
HSA plan, the premium will be $539 per month per employee who chooses that option. For the bronze plan, the district's contribution for each employee per month will be $559. That is all the district will be paying. So to come up with the classic silver premium per employee, you would take the $559 and add this $108.57 that the employee will be adding as their buy-up, and then that would be the premium for the classic silver. So, but all the districts is what we're recommending that the district approve is $559 for each employee, which covers the bronze, and then contributing to the HSA,
So
which
the $539
the $539
includes
is
the
the
$240.
plus the $240
Okay, so-
per year. So add an additional $20 to the $539, and that gets you to the $559 that we're asking the governing board to approve for contributions for each employee per month.
And all of this is included in the $507,000 figure, is that correct?
Yes, so
and-
what we're doing currently, what we're paying currently for each employee is the $539. So if I go back to this slide here, this is where we take that difference. So right now, the district is contributing $539 for each employee for the current packages that we have. So when I take those two numbers, a $20 difference, and multiply that by 12 months by 422 employees, we get the $101,000 that we're asking, or we're recommending the board to approve.
So it's basically a net zero. From the 2 sources of income, I'm saying income, it's not really income, but savings from
The
not.
projected revenue, yes.
Right. And then the $750 that you're estimating be spent. It sounds to me like it's a net zero. and that the staff, though, is gaining a lot. That's how I'm interpreting this. Am I incorrect in my interpretation of that?
Well, I mean, we are asking for the district to contribute a little bit more to offer the employees the 2 free options for benefits.
What would be the estimated net increase to the district?
$101,000
For the entire district?
for the insurance benefits, correct. But our employees will be paying less, and that's very important to us as far as retaining, recruiting, and just offering quality of life for our employees and their families to be able to insure them.
I happen to agree with that. I'm just trying to get straight where, I guess I'm trying to reconcile something that may not be reconcilable. I'm again thinking of it as income and expenditures, and so back at on page 12, or at least in the board book, it was on page 12, where it talks about the additional $261,553, which is coming from the state, right?
For inflation.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. So that's part of the income that's going to offset, or is it not? I'm thinking it's part of the income that will be used for everything.
Yeah, these are the funds that we are recommending being used for the proposed increases in pay and benefits.
Okay, in pay and benefits.
We wanted to be able to answer the question, President Hatcher, members of the board, how is that going to be paid for? How are the stipends going to be paid for? How is the difference on the insurance that's going to benefit our employees and the other things that IBN is recommending? So that's why we strategically put this slide first, so the board would see, okay, so where's the money coming from? How are we making up that difference from this slide here? These would be the available funds that were available for us to be able to make some of these changes or
So-
recommend some of these changes.
We know that this 261,000, that's actually what the state will be giving us.
That is what we're projecting that the state will be giving us, yes.
So when will we know for certain?
They typically finalize budget projections for the next year, usually the end of April, beginning of May. And so, but we know that there is requirement that they fund us an inflationary rate, either at the inflation or 2%, whichever is lower. In the past, inflation hasn't been as high as it is this year. So we know that 2% cap is what we're looking at.
Mrs. Rodriguez, can you speak to some of the research you did on past years of vacancy savings that we've kind of seen typically in Cave Creek, albeit we've lived through a pandemic the last 2 years, but can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, so typically when I go back and I look at positions that we have in the district that haven't been filled or filled for part of a year, we're looking at anywhere from 150 to 250 vacancy savings every year. So obviously during a pandemic it was a little bit different, and last year we had a decrease in enrollment, so that had a little bit of a factor. But this vacancy savings calculation looks to be a pretty steady pattern for the district.
What happens if we, in the next meeting, approve this, say, and that the income is less than projected? Where would we get money to make it up? Because we
So right now,
committed.
currently, and looking at where we are budget to expenditures, we are looking at having some carryover.
Okay.
In excess of our M&O budget of about $1 million, $1.5 million. And so that additional carry forward would make up some of this difference if need be. We can always, adjust in some other areas as well. We do still have some ESSER funds available. We have some, other funding sources that we could help to alleviate some of that pressure on M&O if we needed to. But I'm fairly confident that these numbers, I've been watching our patterns. So I'm very comfortable. with what I'm recommending.
And vacancy savings kind of become really popular words in a district like ours that may be strapped with the lack of an override in place. So you're really trying to find all creative ways. If you're in a district that every 5 or 6, 7 years renews an override, you don't hear a lot of talk about vacancy savings. But I appreciate the creativity in bringing this. And you heard the word "win" quite a bit, Mrs. Lynch. And not only do I see this as a Stephen Covey win-win, I see it as a win-win-win-win in a lot of different areas. So because of that reason and the sustainability of this, I asked Marcy to look back on vacancy savings and our trends in this district, especially in the midst of a national teacher shortage and hard-to-fill positions. We'll be able to count on some vacancy savings in the future years.
Yeah, this is so terribly frustrating. The whole thing is just beyond frustrating to me. But we're all about student achievement. Governing board's priority is student achievement. It's not going to happen without and everybody else sitting in those school buildings. And I do agree that it behooves a school district to take care of their staff. And, the state isn't helpful in that regard to this district. So we are forced to be creative. And if that means keeping, if we have to pay $100-some thousand out of pocket, and especially knowing there's $1 million carryover, it behooves us to protect our staff, and I'll leave it at that right now.
I appreciate the creativity that went into this. On this doctorate stipend, it says allocation for teachers only, so that does not include administration?
Yes, Member Busby, thank you for that question. That is correct. In the recommendations that is coming from the IBN team, we are recommending for it to be teachers only.
Ms. Rodriguez, does school psychologist does not fall under that then, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Do any of our staff have anything else that they would like to say to us? I know you've made a presentation, but if you have anything else to say, I would love to hear from you. If not, I don't want to put you on the spot, but
About insurance.
Not about insurance, no. I think this is probably my 5th year doing IBN, and I have to tell you, this year was like no other. Like, it was such a positive experience. In prior years, sometimes you went in already feeling deflated, and I really felt this year that we could come up with some of these creative solutions. And I felt like from the admin team to the classified team, like we wanted to help each other and we really had each other's backs. I do, like Marcy said, our facilitator was amazing. I think she's probably the 4th facilitator that I've had. And she was wonderful in leading us. And so I just want to talk about that. It was a really positive experience. And I was really happy to be on IBN again.
thank you.
We do have a few
And
more slides.
yes, there are about 3 or 4 more slides. Yeah.
One other question. With these loyalty stipends, is that sustainable for, going forward? Because, I'm thinking, okay, for next year, this is what we're going to do.
Yes, we believe so.
Okay.
We believe in, and as we receive increases from the state, as we continue to look for efficiencies in the way we do business, I do believe that these are all sustainable offerings that we're recommending.
I don't want to give something and then say, sorry, you can't have it. That's the
That's
worst
correct.
thing
We
to
do
do.
not. We do not. I agree with you on that. Thank you, Member Busby. We do not want to do that.
Ms. Rodriguez, if my memory serves me, this will be our 3rd insurance company that we're working with in 3 years. Has there been Or is there a problem with employees or their families that might have prior medical conditions as we switch over again to another new policy holder or program?
I believe there is no pre-existing, correct?
So there's actually a process in place if you have an ongoing condition, certainly complex care. There's a transition of care process. If you did need to change doctors or something like that, in the unlikely event, given that the networks are so well aligned that you would need to change doctors, there is a transition of care process. The employee does need to, or their family member needs to request that if they have an ongoing complex condition, and then there's a case that gets open effectively so they can continue care with their current provider. Shouldn't be extremely relevant in this case, luckily in Arizona. So.
Okay.
I just wanted to, Member Brown, I can understand why you would think that we've had 3 different providers, but that actually we've remained with Blue Cross Blue Shield last year and the year before that. We just changed our plan design last year to be more affordable.
Okay. I just didn't want an employee or a family member kind of get lost in the shuffle.
Yeah, thank you, Member Brown, for that question, and that is the first question that Ms. Lynch and I ask when we work with ASBATE is crosswalk those networks for us, because I want to make sure that we don't have employees having to switch doctors. I think we can all appreciate how difficult it is to find a good doctor, and then to have to change is challenging.
So are we not working with Siegel Company anymore?
We will not be working with them for medical. They are going to assist us through the transition with the dental and the vision for the balance of the year, but we will not be renewing our agreement with them next year.
Okay.
And I'm going to turn this over. We have a few more working condition recommendations. These don't have any money involved in them, but I'm going to have the team share those with you.
President Hatcher, governing board members. I'm Shannon Quinn, and I am the Child Nutrition Director. And so I am here to talk about our 4th priority for classified, and it was the working calendars. And we have a lot of different working calendars for classified, so it was important for us to align those together. And next year with the new school calendar, we will be able to do that. And so we have combined some of those with similar positions. And this, in turn, will allow us to offer our classified staff more professional development days next year. So that is definitely a win for the classified, because they, in the past, have not had as many professional development days. So, and I will say that this has been a great experience. I will say, along with Jill, to be on this committee. We definitely have dedicated CCUSD employees that care about their coworkers and their best interest on what is happening in the district. So it was a pleasure to be on this committee. So I will pass this now on to Christine. Thank you.
Good evening, board members. My name is Christine Hughley, and I teach at Desert Sun Academy. And I have served on the IBN team for several years. And to also echo what Jill said, I was so encouraged this year just to see the way that our Cave Creek staff, all of our staff, came together to support each other, encourage each other, and everyone came in with the mindset of what can we do to support all of our employees. So I was very encouraged by our negotiation team this year. And part of that collaboration was so evident in all of our discussions that we had with our working conditions for our certified employees. And we had several discussions on how can we honor teachers' time at the beginning of the school year when they're preparing for their students to come, and how can we continue that mindset as we focus on our district PLCs. Our teachers are very excited about our PLC focus, and so we wanted to make sure that that time was protected to encourage that process and to let it continue. We also had some discussions on how we can allocate our leave time for our certified staff, just what that would look like, and then what our process is for when we are paying our teachers when they are subbing for their colleagues on their campuses. So that was part of our discussion. But again, it was a very positive process. Everyone came to the table with a problem-solving mindset, and the process was very smooth, and we were very encouraged, and it was a very positive process this year. So I just want to point out that it was super all around. And I will turn it back over to Ms. Rodriguez in case you have any further questions. But thank you so much for letting us share with you tonight, because we were very pleased to do so.
So that concludes our presentation for you this evening. If there are any additional questions, I'd be happy to entertain them.
I'm just curious, how did you go about selecting people to be on the IBN committee?
So that process was done through just word of mouth, asking for volunteers. The typical representation from certified has always been the CCEA representatives, the officers. So that was pretty much a standard selection for the certified. The classified, we asked for volunteers. We wanted to make sure that we had representatives from all of the different areas. So we had a classified from the district office, we had a paraprofessional, we had a front office administrative assistant, we had a bus driver, and then we also, from the administrative team, we wanted to make sure we had representation from an elementary, from a high school, from a department, and then, of course, Ms. Lynch and I were also there. I was there mostly as a resource for information, and to answer questions if they needed clarification on different things or how policies work, those types of things. I was available for them.
Well, I appreciate the time and effort everybody put into this, and your presentation was probably the most informative IBN presentation we've ever had, so thank you.
Thank you for that comment.
Any other comments or questions? Oh, I thank you also for working so hard, and you can tell it's clearly well thought out what y'all did. So thank you.
So on behalf of the whole team, we would like to thank you, Governing Board, for listening to our recommendations and asking your thoughtful questions.
Thank you. Number 5, old business, item 5.1, first and final reading of the revised policy BEDD Rules of Order, presented by Dr. Court Monroe.
President Hatcher, members of the board, this item was tabled at the February 14th Governing Board meeting, as the board directed me to bring this back with some expanded language that clarifies G and how it's different than E. ASB had originally changed this policy to make it clear that the Governing Board President has the authority to recess a meeting without a vote of the Governing Board to maintain decorum in Governing Board meeting rules of order. Legal counsel reviewed and suggested the following revision, which the board has in front of them. We move that the Governing Board approve the revised policy BEDD Rules of Order as a first and final.
Is there a motion to approve 5.1?
So moved.
Is there a second? You get first and second? Okay. Discussion or questions?
I still don't understand where this change to this BEDD policy really is coming from. I did a little research, and I went back about 2 weeks ago. There was a news report that came out about how the National School Board Association was working behind the scenes with the U.S. Attorney General, Department of Justice, to target parents that stood up and spoke to their local school boards in the state of Virginia, even going as far as tagging those parents as domestic terrorists. This proposal from the Arizona School Board Association, I believe, is following that lead of the National School Board Association to make an overreaching change to modify this board policy. And I think if we approve this, it erodes the confidence in our parents and our community members have in the board. I don't feel that giving the board president absolute power to stop and recess a board meeting without the board vote is unneeded and it's unwanted. As board members, we must allow the flow of information from our parents and our community members. We must be allowed to hear all the concerns that are brought forward to us. I've always encouraged our parents and our community members to come and attend board meetings, to come up to the podium and make public comments. We even have the several coffees with the superintendent at all the different school sites that people can come in and have a few minutes to talk to administration and cabinet. In the past 3 years, as I've sat here, this board's heard many parent and community comments on a full range of items, such as the current human growth and development curriculum, comments about going back to in-person learning, comments from students and parents about the district Mandarin immersion program. I also want to add that was never brought to this board for a proper discussion and a board vote to eliminate parts of that program. And lately, this past October, just a couple of months ago, there were several public comments about a possible agenda item to mandate masks into schools. Never in any of these board meetings did I ever feel intimidated or threatened by any public speaker, by any of the students that were here, by any of the adults that were here, even when they met us outside before and after the board meetings. Besides that, we now have 2 Scottsdale police officers in attendance at every meeting. So I'm greatly concerned with the direction of the board. If we vote to approve this change in this policy, it will effectively cancel out any free speech and comments that our parents and community members may make. The loss of this information and feedback to us as the board will prevent us from hearing and understanding specific issues and being able to make good decisions for our students and our staff. They cross-reference several other policies, 2 different ARS Title 15, and none of, I would say not none, only 2 of those items, if you look at them and read them, even vaguely connect with BEDD rules of order. So, in my opinion, our policy works fine, our board works fine. There is a policy in place that if the board wishes to make a recess, that's already in a policy. But to give one person the total authority, I think is unnecessary.
It boggles my mind that there are people that are associating talking about Mandarin or masks with death threats. There is a huge difference. And to think that it's the same thing, or that we're talking about this being about Mandarin, is just having your head in the sand. That's not what this is about. This is about attacks that have been made to school board members. This is about in Scottsdale getting shut down, in Vail getting shut down, where people were physically threatening school board members. They were making false CPS claims on them. This is not the same as just coming up here and saying, don't teach CRT, even though we're not teaching CRT. This is, hopefully, never happens here, but you have to be prepared. This is a necessary thing based on what's going on in this entire country right now. So thinking that this is just about coming up here and complaining because of masks, that's not the same thing. And anybody that thinks it's the same thing is just kind of reading it the way they want to read it.
The suggested clause is, I don't read it as free speech. It's about behavior. It says substantial disruption. So to me, I guess you could say threatening language would be disruption. I could see it both ways. And so I would throw this question out to the board. If you disagree with inserting this, then where is the line? If somebody's standing out there threatening us, and I don't think our people are going to do it. I don't think our community is going to do that. But if someone did, what does the board suggest we do? If they're yelling like we've seen on the news, how do we get order? Because clearly, this doesn't work.
We have that policy now in BED, that the president of the board is responsible for the orderly conduct of the meeting and shall rule on such matters as time to be allowed for public discussion, appropriateness of the subject being presented, suitability of the time for such presentation. So we have that. That falls on the title or the office of the president. It's in our policy that way. Now, I appreciate Member Fortney's comments, but I don't sit on the Scottsdale board or the Vale board. I only deal with Cave Creek.
I'm sure none of those board members expect their community members to behave that way either.
But we also have the policy in place in BEDA that we can call for a recess with a board vote. So why are we superseding one policy with the second policy? Because then if this is approved, we have two conflicting policies.
Substantial disruption.
I don't think they're too conflicting. I think it's two different situations. We can, I mean, in a substantial disruption, the board president may recess, or in another situation, we can all vote to recess as well. I don't think they're conflicting. I think it's two options.
How do you define substantial disruption?
It's probably one of those things where you know it when you feel it.
Well,
When they're out there screaming
your
and yelling at
opinion
you.
of substantial disruption and somebody else's could be two different things. So it's somewhat of a subjective description. You know, if someone comes threatening physical harm, that's explicit. Substantial disruption, well, there's a lot of people here and they're yelling and they're screaming. Okay, so I'm going to end the meeting. That's a little different than somebody threatening physical harm.
For sure. And I think as a board, that's why sitting on a board together, there hopefully is some trust, and why we vote every year for a board president as well. I mean, again, hopefully this never has to be enacted.
It goes back to my question, how do you define it? Because depending on who's sitting in that chair, it's left up to that person's discretion, how they're going to define it. Mm-hmm. And to what Scott was saying, okay, if people are getting enthusiastic about whatever topic, and we've seen lots of enthusiasm with lots of different things over the course of time. Now, we could have somebody sitting here that runs low on patience and decides that, you know, this is getting a little crazy and I want to end the meeting. But is that fair? And we haven't really defined what a substantial disruption is. Now, if during one of those meetings, somebody decided that they were going to come up here and physically harm one of us, that's a completely different situation.
And would you
So
be able
how
to take
is
a
this
vote
defined?
then before they did that?
Right.
But you sitting here and you just make an assessment, well, they're getting loud, so they're gonna, it's gonna get unruly and it's gonna cause riot and they're gonna hurt somebody. Where do you draw the line?
Yeah, I understand that, and that's where I think, like I said, there has to be some trust as a board in who we elect as a president. But with that, I mean, in the scenario that this is going to be used, I think is because there is no time to go to take a vote. And to recess a meeting, I mean, then what? I would think we'd still have to bring those items to the board again. It's not like, oh, we recessed the meeting, so the whole agenda's gone for the rest of the year.
In one of the policies, it talks about recessing a meeting, and if a meeting's recessed, there has to be a time stated when it's going to come back to meeting.
Yeah.
That's in BEDA, down toward the bottom of the first page.
I guess the concern of somebody of the president just recessing the meeting, why would somebody do that unless it was a threatening situation? Because we're going to still have to have the meeting anyways.
It becomes a subjective decision because,
sure.
If you watch, other school board meetings, some of them have gotten loud. Mm-hmm. Okay, does that consider substantial disruption? You got a room full of people, and you got 200 people, they're all talking at once and among themselves, and comments are flying when people are speaking. Is that disruption? Is to the point where it warrants ending the meeting?
We've had on more than one occasion where someone's been at the podium and has made a public comment that the audience has applauded or cheered. And it's been even 3 or 4 or 5 comments in a row. Well, at that moment, then, are we saying that's a substantial disruption because the members of the audience are applauding? So we're just going to recess the meeting and be done with it?
But who would want to just recess a meeting?
That's the thing.
We're all volunteers.
thing.
I would rather be home, like, I don't want to come to a meeting every night a week if
That's
it
the
keeps being
point.
recessed.
Once you start down this slope, there's no end in sight. Then,
How is this defined?
yeah, how do you define what's a substantial disruption? Applause? Is applause a substantial disruption? I guess somebody could think so.
But why would we
Were we able
recess?
to
Why
continue
would
the
we
business of
recess
the
it?
meeting when that applause was over? Yes, we could continue the business of the public meeting.
Yeah, I understand your concern. I understand that it's subjective. The wording is substantial disruption. Again, I believe there has to be some sort of trust in the board president. All of us are here, are volunteer. We don't get paid by the hour. So to recess a meeting because it's just loud, to then have to do another meeting again, why would somebody do that?
That's why I'm.
That's the question.
That's the question here. What is defined as?
I think substantial disruption, somebody's probably coming up to the podium, threatening one of us, and you don't have time to take a vote.
It doesn't sound like we're going to be able to come to consensus on the definition of substantial disruption. So I would, let me ask one question, though, of whomever. This can always be brought back, right? So if there's a riot and they're scaling the walls and attacking us, and we can always bring this back, because then at that point we think that's a substantial disruption and we'd like to then go for it. We can do that, can't we? We can bring it back. Right? Yeah. So we can wait to get a definition of substantial disruption that would suit everyone.
You know, if you want to include this, I would just ask that there be a little more description, substantial disruption be a little more descriptive of what the intent is, so that there isn't a question. Because the last thing that we would want is for our community to say, oh, we jumped the gun and we've stifled our community, which, you know, we're all elected by the community. And our community are the taxpayers that support our school districts. So they should have an opportunity to air their concerns, their praise, their whatever. So without a more descriptive wording here, it could lead community members to feel like, oh, I need to be really careful when I go and what I say, because I don't want to get shut down. I'm not saying that it's going to happen, but knowing what's happened in this community over the years, you know, we need to be a good partner with our stakeholders. And you talk about trust. Well, there's got to be trust between the community and us. And so if this is something that is needed to be added, I would ask that this substantial disruption be more clearly defined.
And so that would, we probably have 5 opinions on what's to define substantial disruption, would be my guess.
I guess to counter the other one, when there's no time to take a vote due to substantial disruption, permit this? I mean, that's what this is in case of, rather than how it's done, right?
Is substantial disruption defined as
no time to take a vote?
Threat of safety Is it a threat of what? What is it? Because, you know, a room that's sitting here applauding and speaking among themselves could be considered a substantial disruption. So what is it?
Applause and cheering when we've had it did not allow for it, the business continued. There was no worry about it. People were saying all sorts of interesting things when I wanted to have the mask thing brought up. That was fine. I had to go home and tell my wife, hey, it's fine. I didn't get any death threats, so we're okay. But other places, this is happening. And to think,
We can't
equate
worry about other places.
To
We
equate
only worry
that-
about
Wait a
Cave
minute,
Creek
guys.
Unified. That's
Wait,
our
hold on a minute.
goal.
Hold on a minute.
Other places are other
Member
places,
Brown,
and it's a shame.
hold on a second. Hold on a second.
to
Finish your
equate-
thought, and then Member
to
Brown.
equate somebody applauding and then the next person going up and talking, which is the continuing of the business, with a school board being overrun so that you cannot continue business, that the admonitions of the president are not being heard, are not being followed, are so 180 degrees difference that it's beyond anything that we're even talking about clapping. I mean, clapping?
Is a disruption people bringing signs that have something written on it that find offensive? Is that a disruption?
Did the meeting continue with those signs up? Yes, it did.
I'm asking, you know, this is for going forward. So in the future, if somebody brings a sign to the school board that says, you know,
Save our program, save our teachers,
our
save
teachers, you know, okay, great,
whatever.
or, you know, kick the board to the curb, you know, whatever it might be. We have a lot of creative people in this community. If there's something that is, you know, not deemed appropriate, or is that considered a disruption?
How would you like it worded? Maybe we should go with that.
Define, what do you consider a disruption?
Well, no, I think this is in regards, the board president may recess with vote already in place.
Already in
correct?
place, yes.
So this is when there is no time for a vote. With adding that language to here, in an event where there's no time for a vote, the governing board may recess due to then there's no subjectivity of substantial disruption. Doesn't matter, because that's happening because there's no time to vote. That's the reason this language is even in here.
Why wouldn't there be time to vote?
If people are storming up to the front, we're going to all sit here and take time to vote?
So if there is a threat to the safety of the board?
Correct. That's why I'm asking you, what type of language do
Well,
you want in there?
that's, you know, you're saying if we don't have time to vote. Well, give me an example. Okay, if they're storming the dais, so if there's a threat to the safety of the board?
So, Member Busby, tell us how you would change that.
Well, I'm asking for a definition to what constitutes substantial disruption. You've already identified there's 5 people sitting here, and there could be 5 different definitions. So to provide some clarity and understanding of what this is supposed to be used for.
Are you wanting us to give you our definition, or I'm asking you for a definition?
I already said, when safety of the board.
Okay, safety of the board. I bet we would all agree on that one. Safety of the board and safety of the crowd. I would extend it to the crowd even. I mean, are you guys wanting to define this right now, or, because I'm not hearing a resolution. So we can move it, or we can sit and define it.
Have problems with it need to say how they would like it redone, reworded, or what they want added to it, correct?
I personally don't think we need to make the change. I think the current BEDD rules of order is fine. I think adding this letter G is the overreach that we don't need.
Do y'all want to, or would you like to vote now?
I say we just call the vote.
Okay. So, are you making a motion to do that?
Yes.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to call the vote on this item. So, all in favor of, let me get to the exact item. All in favor of item 5.1 as presented? So we're going to vote on it. Say aye.
Aye.
As the writing exists. Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
And I'm going to vote no, but I'm going to give you my reason. I'm going to trust the public. And you know, if I'm safe, great. If we're all safe and that trust, nothing happens, I'm going to assume it doesn't. And I'll wear my flak jackets if I expect a bad board meeting. You know, it's a shame that boards even have to think about this, really and truly. This is a long explanation. I don't believe it's about free speech. I believe it's about behavior, and there's a difference. We have said that we want to respect the public, but we need to feel like they can respect us too. We shouldn't have to be fearful up here. So it works both ways. It's no different than being in the classroom. It's not just the teacher that has to be respectful to the parent. It works both ways. So that is my nay. And so with that, I don't think there are any abstentions. I think it was 3-2. The motion passes 3-2. So.
Motion's denied.
Sorry, motion is denied. Motion is
Correct.
denied on that, yeah. And it is denied as presented, 3-2. All righty, moving on. 6, new business, item 6.1, field trips, presented by Mrs. Nancy Scott.
President Hatcher, members of the board, I move that the governing board approve the field trips as requested, as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Are there questions, comments? No, you haven't. You didn't present it. Yeah. Okay. I'm still stuck back on the other thing. Are there any questions or comments about the field trips? Okay. Hearing none, it's been moved and seconded to approve item 6.1, field trips as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. Motion carries. Item 6.1 has been approved as presented. Item 6.2, human resource items presented by Ms. Marcy Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Administration moves that the governing board approve the human resource items as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Questions, comments?
I've got a question. At the very top of this, we list the principal at Desert Willow, the assistant principal at Cactus Shadows for Educational Services, the assistant principal Cactus Shadows for Student Activities, with effective dates July 1st, July 1st, July 18th. But I'm a bit confused because those three people already work for the district. They're already under contract. Wouldn't they now receive a contract now that we've just had the IBN presentation, and then those contracts, along with all the other administrative contracts, come back to the board, I believe, in April for us to approve?
Yeah, so thank you for the question, Member Brown. So we are excited. They are currently interim positions, and we wanted to make that announcement to the community that they are going to become permanent parts of our staff for next year. And yes, this is a little bit of out of order of what we would do when we bring administrator contracts to you. And we will be able to push that up. Our plans are to bring those recommendations all to you in the next governing board meeting. Their contracts won't technically be issued until we issue the contracts for all of the other administrators, but we wanted to celebrate them this evening above and beyond for the work that they've done and the dedication to the district as interim employees.
Usually if we have a position that we post that's open, we're told that there's a committee, there was 10 or 12 candidates, there was a committee that was formed that did the interviews or the first round of interviews, and I just don't know, was there even any candidates, was there any interviews, or we just, since they're already in place, we're just going to kick off the interim term? And
Member Brown, I can answer that question. Yes, there was the full process. They all went through the absolute entire process where we had a full committee. They went through several rounds of interviews, actually. It wasn't just one. We had multiple candidates, at least 6 or 7 for the elementary, and I think at least that many for the secondary as well. So they did go through the full process so that we would make sure that they were the top candidate.
okay, it's just kind of unusual that we normally hear of all that, and in this instance, for these 3, we haven't heard anything. So, I mean, if you just wanted to take off the interim, I don't know if that even needs a board vote. But I would say the effective date, this looks like the effective date of what's going to be their new contract, and I don't think that's correct then, because the new contract hasn't been issued. Because if you're taking off the interim right now, then those effective dates should have been tonight's date.
No, I think they're hired under an interim contract through this school year.
Then they would
But they went through the application process to get permanent positions for the next school year.
But that's for the next school year, and we haven't approved those contracts yet. So we are getting the cart before the horse here.
The actual language for those contracts will be coming to you this evening. Later on, there's a couple of items for that. These contracts will not be issued to these employees until you've approved those contracts and when we issue them to the others. So yes, this is a little bit of out of the ordinary process. The interim, they are under contract for the current year for interim, but we just wanted to celebrate them and let the community know that next year they are going to be coming back to the school and servicing our students.
Well, if they return their contract, we would hope they would return.
Yes, sir, we do hope that.
Anything else? I would just like to say I'm really happy to see that Brandy Baca Dunlap has been hired at Desert Willow, because in 4 years they've had as many principals. And I know they're yearning for stability. So I'm happy to see that. I'm happy to see that she was the one who rose to the top for Desert Willow.
I agree with you, because the same thing with the one of the APs at Cactus Shadows, that position has had a few different candidates in it in the last little while. Mm-hmm. And so to see the consistency, I guess is the word I'm looking for, is good. And it speaks to moving forward for the schools. So.
Yeah, and I think too that in terms of that word consistency is good. Consistency not only for the staff but for the parents too and the students. So yeah, it's helpful for everyone.
Make sure you vote.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none. It's been moved and seconded to approve item 6.2, human resource items as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Abstain.
Okay, motion carries. Item 6.2 is approved as presented.
President Hatcher, members of the board, I'd like to officially welcome a few people to the CCUSD family. Brandy, if you want to come to the mic. As the board is aware, Brandy Dunlap has over 20 years of experience as an educator. She served 15 years in the Paradise Valley School District, where she was an elementary teacher and a state testing coordinator. She also worked on curriculum development and the teacher mentorship programming. She earned her BA in elementary ed from the College of Santa Fe and her master's in administrative leadership from NAU. Mrs. Dunlap lives in Northern Phoenix with her husband and their 2 children who attend Desert Willow Elementary School with her. So congratulations, Brandy, and let you take the mic there for a few minutes.
Thank you, President Hatcher and governing board members. I appreciate the opportunity ahead of time. As mentioned, that's kind of putting the cart before the horse, but I know that this was very important for our community and our families at Desert Willow to know what to expect for next year. And I appreciate the opportunity, and I'm fortunate to be able to work with such a great community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Sit. Come on down, Cindy. This is like The Price is Right. Cindy Black has 15 years of experience as a K-12 educator in Arizona. She served as a teacher in the elementary, middle, and high school settings, and most recently was an instructional coach who provided teacher support, needs-based professional development to teachers. Ms. Black earned a BA in General Arts from York University and a post-bac in education from ASU with a focus in technology, and her master's is in educational leadership from NAU. Cindy.
Thank you, Madam President and everybody else on the board. My first time addressing the board, so I'm a little bit nervous here, but I'm really excited and honored to be able to continue and take that interim off of my position. So I look forward to serving next year as well. Thank you.
Angela Pantaleon, come on up. She has 15 years of experience at the high school level. She has consistently been recognized as a leader on her campuses and has completed the Aspiring Administrators Program in SUSD in Scottsdale. She earned her BA in English from Texas A&M University and her master's in Educational Administration from Grand Canyon University. Angela.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Madam President and Vice President Fortney. Thank you for having us this evening. I do look forward to next year. We have a lot of exciting things happening at Cactus Shadows, a lot of changes, and I wouldn't say I would say they're all very positive changes. A lot of things moving forward that I think that we'll be able to support our students and our community even better. With the professional learning communities and so forth, thank you for seeing what that will do for our students, and we're really excited to move forward with everything, so thanks again.
Erica, come on up to the mic. And finally, the board has approved our new Educational Technology Director, Erica Celsi. She has 15 years of experience in education. She's been a technology integration specialist and a technology coach for the last 12 years. She is Google certified. She's a Google certified trainer and ISTE certified educator as well. She earned her bachelor's in elementary ed from ASU and a master's in ed leadership from NAU. Erica lives in the North Valley with her husband and 3 children. Erica.
Thank you, Dr. Monroe. Good evening, Madam President and Vice President Fortney. I am so eager and honored to become part of the Cave Creek community, and I'm so excited to bring my experience to the technology department and provide our students with opportunities to continue to be innovative and cutting edge and be prepared to grow into successful, beautiful humans as they go off into the world and leave us. So thank you for the opportunity.
Okay. Glad we didn't scare you off tonight. Item 6.3, approval of exempt classified employment agreement for the 2022-2023 school year, presented by Ms. Marcy Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you. These items have been reviewed by our legal and approved to present to the governing board this evening. So we move that the governing board approve the exempt classified employment agreement for the 2022-2023 school year as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
I do have a couple comments. There's some typos. In the third paragraph, the 4th line, where it's number 3, the district does not receive funds T, and then it continues, not authorized to use funds hat.
We got an email this afternoon on that.
So,
Yeah.
I'm just mentioning that because this is what was in the board book. And then down at the bottom, the last paragraph, the second from the bottom line, employee R fails report is another typo. It's at the bottom of the first page.
Okay. Oh, you see that?
Right here. Employee R. Second line from the bottom of the first page, the line starts
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah, thank you for that, Member Busby. We will make that correction before these agreements are issued to the employees.
Any other questions or comments?
I have a question. When it talks about the waiver, I know if the employee breaks the contract because they're getting a promotion, the $2,500 damages isn't assessed, but it doesn't really mention that in here.
Thank you. Member Busby, Madam President, I don't believe that this class of employees is penalized for breaking their contracts. I don't see the $2,500 statement.
Well, it mentions liquidated damages. So I'm taking from that there would be some fee assessed to them, whatever it might be. I know historically for the district, if someone breaks a contract, regardless if they're
There it is.
classified or certified, then for a promotion, they're not.
I think it's right there at the very bottom line of that paragraph. Yeah, the spacing is different from the board
Oh,
book.
I
so that-
apologize. Yes, it's in the very last line. Correct.
Yeah. So I know, so I'm just asking, is that something that, about if they're leaving for a promotion in position, is that something that needs to be put in here? Clarification?
So thank you for that, that question, Member Busby. Previously, we have not included what the exemptions are. We do have a practice of what those exemptions may be for promotion, a spouse moves out of state, there is a family medical issue. So we do have a criteria that we do use when we recommend whether that liquidated damages be charged or not.
And so we don't need to put those in here?
I will verify that with our legal counsel to make sure that we do not.
Okay.
But currently, we don't have the exemptions in the contracts.
Okay, thank you.
And they weren't in the previous contracts either. I don't believe that
That is
language was in
correct. We
previous
have never
contracts.
included them in the contracts.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, hearing none, it's been moved and seconded to approve item 6.3, approval of exempt classified employment agreement for the 2022-2023 school year as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Item 6.3 is approved as presented. Item 6.4, approval of non-exempt classified notice of appointment for the 2022-2023 school year, presented by Ms. Marcy Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam President. Members of the board, again, these items have been reviewed by legal and are recommending that the governing board approve these items. So the administration moves that the governing board approve the non-exempt classified notice of appointment for the 2022-2023 school year as presented.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Questions or comments?
Well, I kind of have a comment, I guess. It's the first line, well, not the first line, but it says employee agrees overtime must be authorized in accordance with policy GDL. Okay. So I go to GDL, and it doesn't really talk a lot about overtime. That should be policy GDL-R. And then on this policy GDL, it cross-references a policy GDBC, which we don't even have, it's not listed in ASBA's policy bridge for Cave Creek. So I'm not really sure what that policy's about. I found it in other school districts, but not in ours.
Thank you, Member Busby, for the question. Yes, the GDL just states that the overtime must be pre-authorized, and that is the policy. The regulation is not in effect in the district. We are taking the language of compensatory time out of the agreement, and you'll see that in the strikeout. The GDL does say that the employee must have pre-authorization for overtime, and that is the guidelines that we are asking the employees with this agreement.
So we're not going to have the regulation?
Correct. Based on the approval of this and the strikeout of that language, we will be removing the regulation.
When employees sign this, I'm just curious, does the district make sure they understand that they're subject to these policies, and do employees know where to find them? Because I have to say, when I worked in the district, I didn't even look up the policies.
Thank you, Madam President, for that question, and that is a very good question. So we've discussed this, and along with this agreement, we will be providing a copy of the policy that governs this agreement. We will also be creating an employee handbook, and that in handbook will have the policies and regulations that the employees are asking to be followed.
That's a great idea. I'm glad you're providing the paperwork along with the contracts. It's a good idea. Thank you.
The policies are available to anybody. They're on, the link to those policies are on our website. If anybody wants to go down that rabbit hole and start looking at policies.
Yeah. Any other comments or questions?
No, I just might ask that the administration take a look at that GDL and what's cross-referenced, because it doesn't, this GDBC, it doesn't exist in Cave Creek's list of policies.
Thank you, Member Busby. We will review that and bring further policy reviews to the governing board if we need to make the adjustment.
Anything else? Okay, hearing none, it's been moved and seconded to approve item 6.4, approval of non-exempt classified notice of appointment for the 2022-2023 school year as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. Motion carries. Item 6.4 is approved as presented. Item 6.5, approval of administrative contract language for the 2022-2023 school year, presented by Ms. Marcy Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Members of the board, we have had these contracts and these exhibits reviewed by our legal counsel. They are recommending that the governing board do approve them. So the administration moves that the governing board approve the administrative contract language for the 2022-2023 school year as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Questions or comments?
Well, I'm a little curious. Why, or because these exhibits that are with this contract, it lists vehicle allowance. So why is a stipend actually stated on, a vehicle stipend stated on the front of the, or under compensation when it's part of the exhibit?
So there are different amounts depending on the position of the person. So those exhibits display the different amounts of the car allowance based on the position.
On this exhibit for the administrator benefits, under vacation, it mentions accumulated vacation balance an amount equivalent to 2 years of accrual, 36 days or 46 days. Could you find that? It's up at the top. Go back. It's the third bullet under vacation.
That's a very good question. Thank you, Member Busby. That was stated that way last year. That has not changed. I will need to do some research to see why there are two different amounts there.
Mrs. Rodriguez, it's because if you're in your first 3 years, you get 18 days of vacation, and after that, you get 23 days. And so 2 years for the people in their first 3 years would be 36. 23 times 2 is 46, so that's what, it's the two different classes, the first 3 years and then the beyond.
For clarification, could it be reworded or rewritten so that it, equivalent to 2 years or 36 days for years 1 to...
I think the bullet ahead of it.
I know, but when you get down here, because even Mrs. Rodriguez was stumped by that, and it was a little confusing. So you're making the suggestion they change? Yeah, it gets, just to clarify which group is the 36 days and which group is the 46 days. And then I have a question. Under the insurance, administrator will be provided district-paid medical insurance on district's medical plan for administrator only. Are we clarifying what amount? Because there's 3 plans, and yes, I know the district is paying an amount for one of the plans, but if Administrator X opts for, I think it was it the silver plan that was probably the more expensive one? If the administrator opts for that, it doesn't clarify in here what medical plan. So, are we on the hook for paying that premium for the administrator if that more rich plan is selected?
Thank you, Member Buzzy. That's a great question in the way that is worded. The intent of that statement is to say we will pay for the administrator only, not their family. But I do understand the question.
Well, that's what it
that
says, that it's the
correct,
administrator only. But
correct.
when we're offering multiple plans, which one are we paying for?
So that might be reworded to say the district's free medical plan option or the non-employee cost option. We could restate that to clarify.
Can I ask a clarifying question for the medical? In going through that presentation, I assumed that all 3 plans cost the district the same amount. It's just that the employee's portion is what makes up the difference. Correct. So that $559 is the free plan. So the district's going to pay $559 for the free plan. The other plan's going to be cheaper because then we're also contributing towards the HSA, which still is a wash at the $559. And then the silver plan, we're still paying the $559 as the district, but the employee then has to pay part because they get a lower deductible in those sort of options, but the cost to the district is the same for every single employee, and then the employee makes up the difference depending on which plan you choose. Same as I do for my own family's plan, depending which one I choose.
Yeah, I
Yes.
agree with what you're saying. My point is if the employee picks that plan where they have to contribute $100 and whatever dollars, it doesn't specify which medical plan. It just says that the district will pay the employee cost for administrator only. So are we going to say, okay, if you want this more rich plan and it costs more, we're still paying it? Because it's not differentiated in here, and we have multiple plans.
I mean, the statement does say the district paid medical insurance. I mean, you could interpret that statement to say the district's paid medical insurance, but I understand the distinction that maybe we need to be a little bit more precise on that language. There could be an interpretation.
How is the 130 days on this one, for example, determined? The general leave days and the payout rate? Is that industry standard or the size of the district? What is that based on? Under general leave. Yeah, the fourth bullet point.
That's based on policy, and that language that has been a practice of the district prior to this administration. So I would believe that it would have been negotiated in the past.
Okay.
The 55 days, is that one of the things you were asking about? The 55 days,
No,
that, and then the $130 per day, I'm not sure how we ever got to
Yeah.
that, but the 55 days, that came up because at one point there were folks who had an excessive amount of vacation, and it would be paying almost a whole other salary. So several years ago, the board decided that
Yeah.
it should be capped at 55.
I remember that.
That's why that came about. But the 130, I'm not really sure because,
And I'm not challenging it, I was just curious to know, because there were different rates for different levels. Any other comments?
I've got another question. Out of curiosity, how come the chief financial officer has its own contract, but if you look at our org chart, there's 3 positions that are all at the same level, but there's only individual or a specific contract for the position of chief financial officer. The other 2, I'm assuming, fall under the administrator's contract?
Yes, that is correct.
Well, why is that?
That decision was made prior to me coming on board. I don't know why that decision was made.
Well, prior to the reorganization, we had a contract for executive leadership, administrators, and so forth. So I'm not really understanding if we're being fair across the board. You know, there's, as I said, according to our org chart, there's 3 positions that are at the same level on the org chart, but only one of those 3 positions has a specific contract.
Yes, I understand what you're saying. I cannot explain the why behind that.
Yeah, I don't have any comment on it either. That's when I came to work as the superintendent was hired. That's how it was set up, and we just continued it. The org chart just kind of represented across visually who was a member of the cabinet. But those were the benefits in place when I took the job.
I'm talking about the contract itself because it's specific to the CFO, and previously it was executive leadership team, which included the CFO. But everybody in the executive leadership that was at that level had that same contract. So according to how this is set up, the CFO that Schedule A is slightly different than Schedule A for administrators. So how does that work out when you're at the same level on the org chart?
Again, that's the structure that was in place and has been in place prior to me coming on board. So that decision was made several years ago. We did look at the history, and that does look like that was a pattern that I do see.
Isn't there some discrimination in that?
That's at the discretion of the administration and the board.
Do we know, are we able to see how many years that it's been running on its own contract?
We can go back and we
yeah.
can look at that, yes.
We can go back and research that, certainly.
You know, I would be interested in finding out if there's discrimination, because what we did in the past is one thing. I'm concerned about going forward and eliminating a potential liability. And so, you know, employees in a class are all supposed to be treated equally and have similar opportunities.
We can definitely discuss that with legal to make sure that we are within our legal rights to have that differentiation in the levels of executive positions.
Now, don't take this question as I'm picking on you. I'm asking this because the chief financial officer contract is the only one that's singled out.
Yes, ma'am.
So, what I would like administration to present to the board is what's referred to as the cost of an employee, which would include salary, cost of paid time off, cost of insurance benefits, whatever the district is paying, deferred compensation, state retirement contributions, state and federal withholdings, and stipends, so that we have a clear understanding of what this position costs us. Because to say we're paying X number of dollars in salary is one thing. There's a lot more costs that are behind any one employee, and I'm not picking on you. It's the position, because these are all costs that are associated in one way or another with every employee.
Yes, we can provide that information to you, Member Busby.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Since there's some clarification that is needed for some of these exhibits and on the contract, I would like to table this for clarification and brought back to the board.
Okay, there's a motion to table. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained. Motion carries to table, and it will be brought back. Item 7, future agenda items, 7.1. Let me look at my thing here. All right. Item 7.1 will be presented by me, Beth Hatcher. It is brought to us from member Scott Brown. Something that was discussed at the February 14th, 2022 Governing Board meeting was a curriculum program called Second Step that is being used at Sonoran Trails Middle School and may be in use at other district schools. I'm not familiar with this curriculum or program. Is there a way the Governing Board could have a quick presentation about Second Step placed on the agenda for the February 28, 2022 board meeting? That way, if the Governing Board decides to have this brought forward for a vote to discuss and approve, we will have some idea of the Second Step curriculum and what it consists of. So, since this is a proposed agenda item, it's an up or down vote only, no discussion permitted. A vote to approve will place item 7.1 on a future agenda. A no vote will kill the motion. Is there a motion to approve item 7.1, the request for a Second Step presentation as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. Motion carries 4 aye, 1 opposed. Item 7.1 is approved as presented. Number 8, adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. Motion
Aye.
carries. Meeting is adjourned.